Good Friday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. We're watching the tropics here, some local showers and storms as well. I know we want to talk about that sports here, mixing that topic there with the weather in just a few minutes and kind of smile some. But right now we do have a situation evolving here with a tropical system that has developed off the southeast Florida coast. So let's go ahead and show you what is happening on the infrared satellite imagery. We have tropical depression 19 here as we're looking off of Miami. You can kind of see the thunderstorm activity here. You see the D icon there on the screen. That's indicative of the center of this as of the 5 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center in Miami. I know just looking back to Wednesday, there was not even a chance really of this evolving according to the Hurricane Center or any of the models. Didn't really see it. Nobody here in the Weather Enterprise saw what was maybe evolving here, and it has just kind of got its act together over the last 24 to 48 hours, especially here today though, and we really want to get people to keep an eye on this as we're looking towards South Florida or so, and then as we get toward the northern Gulf Coast as well, maybe even parts of northern Florida, but especially the northern Gulf Coast. The latest information from the Hurricane Center does show that there's a tropical storm watch in effect there from south of Jupiter Inlet to north of Ocean Reef. So we're watching for the potential for some tropical conditions, and we see maybe a landfall here around 2 a.m. according to the Hurricane Center of this tropical depression, or it could be a tropical storm here, and we'll talk about what type of name it might have here in a moment with that list, because there's other systems trying to kind of get ahead of this maybe in the name process, but we'll continue to track this here. I'll broaden the view out a little bit. You'll kind of see we have it on the smaller satellite look at things. So go ahead and take that off for now, and you'll be able to see what is happening. You see some wind in Georgia, not associated really with this, but we're going to be looking here to kind of give you an idea of some things here with the official track and some other models as we're watching that wind flow pattern as well. We'll keep our eyes on that. We'll keep an eye on the windy conditions there in Georgia, but then you see these tropical icons here, tropical storm icons with maybe a tropical system moving toward parts of Louisiana as we get here in toward that Tuesday. So just kind of stay tuned. We'll have to see how that impacts the Florida Big Bend as well, because of the overall footprint of this tropical cyclone here. As it does get that together, we'll have to see how much moisture it throws up toward the Florida Big Bend, and even in toward North Florida and toward the Jacksonville region I'm talking about as well, north central and northeastern parts of the state. So just kind of keep an eye on this throughout the weekend. I'm not turning the logo red yet, but it's just something that I'm starting to think about, because things have escalated quite a bit here in the last little bit, really, as we look to maybe a strong tropical storm here approaching the Gulf Coast as we're looking toward next week. That's what the Hurricane Center has right now, so just kind of stay tuned there as we give you that latest information on this. As we continue to look here, I'm going to go ahead and pull up some Hurricane Center information I have here with the cone perspective right now, and you can see that 5 o'clock advisory on tropical depression 19. Talking about maximum sustained winds about 35 miles an hour. That movement off toward the west-northwest at 8. And we're also seeing that minimum pressure here, and that's at 1,009 millibars. Not too deep of a system yet, but we'll just have to watch to see how it might get its act together. The official forecast doesn't really have it becoming a tropical storm here until we get into the Gulf of Mexico. But we'll just have to see if it evolves maybe a little quicker. I mean, it's only a few miles per hour away from already becoming a tropical storm. Might become Sally. We'll see that list here in a moment as we have other systems we're watching. But note the Apalachicola here in the cone of concern as well. So again, things have changed pretty quickly here with the tropics. And again, we were not really even tracking this a couple of days ago, as we see you the latest information in regards to the model ensemble mean. This is going through next Thursday there, but the point about this here is more than anything, I think I might have that date wrong, but you get the idea. We're talking about the 17th there, but as we're looking into where this time frame, the point being is that we're watching this situation here as it evolves into the Gulf. A lot of them have it here, the different runs of a certain model have it as maybe a weaker system, but some of them are now trying to, so it might be a stronger type system, maybe a strong tropical storm. So we just have to pay attention because, again, things changing pretty quick here. And just don't lay your guard down over the weekend, because I know that's the thing that meteorologists, myself included here, worry about sometimes, is people not really tuning into the latest information. I know with football coming back, that could really be a problem here because of what is going on. We just want people to stay up to date because things are definitely changing here, and we could have new advisories that are required here in pretty short order as we're looking ahead towards some of these spots that just were to take more of a northerly track, especially here. So just kind of stay tuned. We're at the peak of hurricane season, and this is the time of year you're going to expect these kind of pop-up systems to occur, and a lot of them aren't too impactful, but this is going to go over to warmer Gulf waters. Could get into some pretty favorable conditions, so we just need people to, again, have that a way to get those alerts, really. I mean, as we're talking about maybe tropical storm watches coming into play here, something we weren't really expecting to talk about here 24 hours ago, but the scene has changed. We could be talking about Sally here as early as tonight, Teddy as well, depending on how other systems evolve that I'm not going to really get into right now because those are not immediate threats here toward our region, but we'll continue to watch things here with the tropics. Again, could be talking about Sally here. That seems like the most likely name for this, but Teddy not out of the question either, so I don't want to kind of just focus on one name here, as this could be a different name than what we would generally expect as we're watching Paulette and Renee right now. Not really too concerned about those systems, so we're not going to dive into them. But again, just giving you that quick update. We're going to try to talk about some lighter topics here in terms of sports weather. I know we were hoping to just kind of have a pretty fun show overall here. We'll be talking about some thunderstorms impacting things, but unfortunately with the tropics we had to bring you that late breaking information. I was gathering it here, coming on here a little past 6:30. I was trying to get on a little quicker than that, but again, we just have so much late breaking information with the tropical situation there off of the Florida coast. We just needed to make sure we gave you that latest information here to protect you, your friends, and your family. Again, could get some of that moisture footprint even coming up into north central northeast Florida, so stay tuned on that. But now let's switch topics. High school football, folks. This is why we were coming on Friday night here, and why we're going to be coming on Friday night. The plan is throughout this college football season, that time frame going into about mid-December or so, as we're looking at all these exciting games. Hopefully things go well with the coronavirus threat. And speaking about the coronavirus threat, it's actually senior night for my Bradford Tornadoes, as we're seeing 7:30 the kickoff time here tonight in Stark, Florida. Low 80s expected, a 40% chance of rain. Mostly cloudy skies, though, are the story. It does look like around, but hopefully we can avoid some of these showers for the most part here, as we're keeping our eyes again on this forecast. We'll go ahead and switch you over to the Doppler radar technology now to show you how things are evolving at the present time, and they look pretty good, not perfect, but they're better than they could be, to be quite honest. We could have some more moisture in the picture as we get that latest frame here of the Doppler coming on in. You see some of the moisture out of Tallahassee, and I'll talk about some of the other moisture around for high school games here in a moment. But you do see overall things relatively dry. Maybe some sprinkles coming on in from the east. We have some stronger acts in here toward Duval County, but nothing severe in nature. That's the good news. I'll give you another perspective here as we go over to our radar scope computer. I know I want to see this here as we go ahead and show you maybe how this accident is tracking overall with some different tracks on the screen for everybody. You'll be able to see in the Duval County right now, we have a area that we are watching could disrupt some games here. There may be some lightning trying to evolve with this accident as well, so that's something to keep an eye on here as the evening does go along, because of course that's very dangerous with high school football, as you see some of this seeming as if we're going to have the bigger threat here for storms as we get up toward the north here. You can kind of see this. This is for the Jacksonville area. I'm going to talk about the Tallahassee area here in a moment. But this looks like the area we would be having the greatest threat overall. Some of this here down to the south looks lighter, so that's the good news. But even then in that box, mini games will probably be all right. But there'll be a few maybe with some disruptions, as I've alluded to. So just kind of keep an eye on things. You see more this lighter rain out toward Tallahassee now, and that's great news for any type of delays as we get out toward the Big Bend. I'll see a different perspective here on the Tallahassee radar. You see some lightning there showing up from earlier, but a lot of the heavier action in the southwest Georgia, which unfortunately we could have some delays there with some of this lightning around. You can see that showing up here. They're getting a little bit tighter. You see as we're looking towards some of these spots. I know some areas not actually playing games tonight because of the coronavirus threats. I don't want to kind of, again, focus here on one area. Just kind of the broader scheme of southwest Georgia would have the higher chance of some games being delayed here because of some of those storms around. So just take a poncho there, and if you're headed out to many of these games, I would just go ahead and suggest it because there is some rain around, and then of course keep an eye on that lightning threat as the school officials will be doing as well. And it's kind of interesting here with having to wear a mask and maybe a poncho both, kind of unusual, but it's 2020. A lot of things have been unusual this year, including that system just sparking up here pretty quickly off the Florida East Coast. We generally have a signal in the models that is a little clearer than what we've really saw here in this scenario. Unfortunately, not really seeing a great signal for development until we're getting later on into the period. So again, this is the look here at the Doppler. Again, southwest Georgia, maybe games as we're looking up here toward Cuthbert and that general vicinity could have some issues here. So just kind of keeping our eyes on this. Maybe some wet fields as well, but not an extreme type delay scenario, but definitely some delays are probably going to happen and probably already happening here in towards some spots. So that's your radar scope computer. I'll come back on camera now. We're showing you that Doppler technology again, a different perspective, and now we're going to go back to the graphic system because I have a prediction to make here for our Keystone Bradford game. Of course, we talked about other games in the region, and we'll be monitoring that forecast. But Bradford over Keystone is my prediction here for tonight's game. I think the Tornadoes, I know they started out there with that loss last week, but getting there, looking at that game, hopefully breaking down some tape from that and trying to correct some mistakes, playing at home with it as well here. I think the Tornadoes are going to get the victory over the Indians, but it could be a pretty close game. I know Bradford's been doing pretty well in this series lately, but Keystone does have a chance here. We'll just have to kind of keep our eyes on that. But I went to Bradford here, Stark, Florida, and hopefully, again, the Tornadoes can get a victory as we look at the Futurecast model, and this is from a little while ago, and it's not really doing that great of a job, to be quite honest, with some of this. So we were seeing the potential maybe for some of this action to get going here and toward the Big Bend, but I'm not really seeing too much of that based on the current radar trends. So that's some good news. This is just from a little while ago, so it shows you sometimes the models just have a tough time handling even something in the relatively short term here. So again, just got to pay attention to the tropics as we look now. My Seminoles in action. I have my garnet and gold tie on here. Looking forward to this game. 3:30 on ABC across the nation. Looking there, we're looking above the stadium, in fact, here with some of the satellite imagery. And mid-80s the story. 60% chance of rain. Soured and maybe some scattered storms, though. So you have to be cognizant of that here. You do have to be cognizant of that potential because we could have some disruptions in the action, unfortunately. But I do have one positive here, maybe not talking about the disruptions, but talking about a Florida State victory. That's what I'm predicting here against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets tomorrow. I know it's kind of hard to believe, but looking back in history, the Noles haven't really played Georgia Tech that much. That's not as hard to believe, but in the regular season, we haven't beaten the Yellow Jackets since 2003, it looked like there, since the Bobby Bowden era. So we beat them a couple times there in the ACC Championship game against Paul Johnson's squad, head coach Jimbo Fisher and Axon, of course, against them, 2012-2014. But just kind of interesting to see here that this game here is one where we could get our first regular season victory against the Yellow Jackets in a really long time in that time frame there. At 3:30 ABC, that game will be called by the announcers Joe Tessitore and, of course, Greg McElroy, a new team there, ESPN and ABC, and the reporter there on the sideline will be Holly Rowe. And since they're one of the top 4 announcing teams for ESPN and ABC, they should be on site to call the action with this. I know the coronavirus, a lot of them calling the games remotely, but this one looking like they're going to be on site. As we look at 4 p.m. though, could again have to contend with some showers and storms around. So we'll just keep our eyes on that. It's looking a little bit better maybe. We'll see that the storm system maybe kind of, if it gets its act together, maybe we don't get as much moisture here on Saturday. Could end up waiting to Sunday to get kind of more into toward that moisture picture here. So just something to kind of stay tuned to see how the trends are here with the Doppler radar and how that system does evolve. Tropical depression 19 toward the south. We're just going to continue to check in. I'm going to check in right now with the Hurricane Center to see if we have any new updates and make sure we don't get this upgraded to a tropical storm real quick. And it's still a depression here as of the latest information on their website. So again, 4 p.m. tomorrow, you do see some showers around some storms. Could have some delays here. Talking about some of the action across the country here. I know on the ACC network at noon, Syracuse at North Carolina. That's to be an interesting game to see how good North Carolina is anyway. I know heavy favorite, but Chapel Hill, no fans, I do not believe there. And same with Iowa State over in Ames, but a low thunderstorm delay risk overall, and that's some good news. I'll kind of step out of the way here so you can see what I'm talking about. And we do have some other games that we're watching. I know, again, we're talking about that Iowa State game. That's on ESPN. And then at 2:30, Duke at Notre Dame. Notre Dame there. We're going to be watching that to see how that contest does get going. Should be an interesting one there. The debut of a new quarterback for Duke, transferred in from Clemson, and then Notre Dame, of course, a heavy favorite here in this one. That game that'll be called on the National Broadcasting Company by Mike Tirico, and then Tony Dungy will be there, a new announcing team for Notre Dame football as well. And then the reporter there will, of course, be Jack Collinsworth. That'll be a new reporter for that contest coming over from the ACC network there. And then 3:30, Georgia Tech, Florida State. We have to watch out for some showers and storms in that picture as well. Could have a delay. I know we're watching some action coming in from the west for the areas around South Bend, and then we're watching probably action from the east for Tallahassee, and then action around the west coast of Florida, maybe from that tropical system towards South Florida, the Citadel and South Florida tomorrow at 7 on ESPNU. And the ACC network at 8 o'clock is Western Kentucky and Louisville, and some more threats there in terms of some of that thunderstorm action. We're just going to focus on these games that involve the teams in the top 25, the Power 5, the American Athletic Conference. So I know I'm leaving some of these other games out, maybe involving teams like Appalachian State, for instance. So we're just going to kind of monitor that action as well, and some of those different family of networks that ESPN has as we look ahead toward some of that action. But let's go ahead and go back over toward the Doppler radar real quick before we dive in a little bit more here on some of this. I just want to give you an update for some of the high school football fans to see what Southwest Georgia looks like. Not too much of a change from a few minutes ago, but let's just go ahead and kind of pop it on the screen here. And you'll be able to see some of these areas looking pretty good, but you still see some lightning action here as we're kind of showing you here some of those different viewpoints. Again, moving more toward that Dothan area, they could have some issues. Significant weather advisory coming down closer toward that region here, so they could end up having some issues there with Alabama high school football over in toward that state. So we'll just keep our eyes on that, but I'm going to come back on camera now. We'll go ahead and move along here in the sequence. I know we're going between some different systems. You might see the lighting change just a little bit. But now let's kind of go to a fun part here of this show. I'm going to kind of rank the top 7 in college football. We're not considering the Big Ten and Pac-12 here right now. That could change, of course, if they end up getting involved here, deciding to want to play as the season does move along. An unusual situation with the coronavirus, to say the least. I didn't think I'd be talking about something like that a few months ago, with some conferences not playing, some conferences playing, but we're just going to rank the teams, and these are all going to be in the SEC, ACC, or Big 12. American teams not quite in my top 7 here at this point. We'll keep our eye on some of those different teams and their progressions here throughout the year. But number 7, a little lower than some of the other polls, but I have Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs there out of the SEC. We'll just see how they play, because the quarterback position is a question for them. And then number 6, we have Oklahoma, again, another question at the quarterback position, a little more certainty for them, but it's hard to rank them above the team that beat them last year in the national champions, or excuse me, not national championship, in the playoff. I mean, every game pretty much was a national championship for LSU, who's my number 5 team, as they were just trying to prove themselves all year long. That team out of Baton Rouge just doing so well. Quarterback position different for them too, but that quarterback there has really kind of worked at that position here, kind of learning from Joe Burrow as we're looking back toward last year, of course, trying to see how the Tiger to play. They did lose some players here, with some of the players opting out because of the coronavirus, but Louisiana State's my number 5 team here in the poll. We have Notre Dame here, number 4, the Fighting Irish. I just think that team has quite a bit going for them here. I know they're going in the ACC, so these rankings for the playoffs could be a little bit different because some of the other teams that they could be playing here, like Clemson, which will be higher up in my poll here in a moment, could kind of influence some of the matchups and maybe you don't want to repeat. But I'm just going to rank them as I see them right now. So despite some of these games potentially being rematches, as we'll see here in a moment, another couple of teams I'm talking about, this could kind of be interesting to see because these games probably wouldn't actually take place in the playoffs in this format, but just looking at the best 4 teams, this is what I have. And number 3, I don't think you can say I'm biased here because I'm a Seminole, but I have the Florida Gators, number 3, in this poll out of the SEC. We'll see how they play here as their season doesn't start for another couple weeks. They take on the Ole Miss Rebels in Oxford, but they're my number 3 team. That quarterback position looks pretty solid to me. And number 2, the quarterback position doesn't even matter that much for Alabama in some regard because they just have so much talent on that team. Such a great coach in Nick Saban, and I think they're really primed here. And same with Clemson, great coach, great quarterback. Little difference there comparing them to Alabama, but you get the idea. Just an incredible team overall. They're out of Clemson, South Carolina, that Greenville television market. So we're going to be just kind of seeing how things go for that school there. Talking about a school from South Carolina and Alabama and Florida and Indiana there in the top 4. So that's your list right there. And now we're going to transition over to the NFL. We do have a big contest between the Colts and the Jaguars here on Sunday at 1 o'clock in Jacksonville. Mid-80s forecast for that one. 70% chance of rain. So shower scattered storms, a little higher chance even for this one because of more of that moisture being pulled up by a tropical depression. So you just want to kind of stay tuned here to see how that influences things. We'll have to just make sure, not a huge chance I don't think, but just make sure we don't get some isolated tornadoes to spin up here based on how this system does end up coming together here. And then in terms of the overall game, I know the Jaguars did beat Indy in the last game last year, but the addition of Phillip Rivers for the Colts, a big difference there, and the Jaguars losing a lot of pieces. I think the Colts are going to get it done. It might be a closer game than you would expect, but I think Indianapolis will get that victory. And now talking about some of these games here in terms of delays, there's some games I have that have a lower chance of a delay. It is at least noteworthy enough to put them on the graphic though, but a medium chance of a delay for that game in Jacksonville with some of that thunderstorm activity potentially around. And then we also have wildfires impacting air quality there as we get out towards San Francisco, so that's something to be mindful of there too. In the Bay Area, Santa Clara, you just have to kind of see how things are going in toward that contest, in toward that region. And I know trying to give you the latest information here, just trying to make sure I give you those updates. Sometimes maybe games change or something, won't be able to quite get it here on the air, as we don't have a chat session here, 4 games being canceled. So if something's broken the last few minutes with a game or something, then just I apologize, but just trying to, because with the coronavirus, things can change quick with a game being canceled or postponed. So just want to put that disclaimer out real quick because things are fluid this year. But again, looking at Doppler radar for the high school football, most of the worst of the accident here moving on off, and that's good news for everybody. You see, as we're looking toward areas there in toward southwest Georgia, around Blakely, around Arlington, seeing some of that storminess. So we'll continue to watch things, but I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it on up here as we go ahead and put me back on camera here on this Friday evening. It's time for some football out there. We're watching the tropics as well. We're watching that radar here across our region too, as we give you those latest details here. There's your Doppler again, a different perspective, looking pretty good on Stark, but we got a pretty good gustus now in Jacksonville, the Naval Air Station, almost tropical storm force. So still could have some issues there with a gust or two with some of those showers and storms around Duval. And now a look at that tropics here. I'm going to pull that up now as we kind of end on that one. Tropical depression number 19. We're tracking that as it moves toward the Gulf Coast this weekend, early next week. But first off, it's got to go through South Florida, where tropical storm watch is in play for parts of that region. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. And of course, if there's anything with the tropics I need to break in earlier for, then maybe coming here for a Monday update, I'll do so on all of our platforms as needed.